Hello and welcome to Politically Incorrect. It's been just over a week since the violent street execution of Libya's Moammar Gaddafi, the shocking climax of what's been called the Arab Spring that began in Tunisia, progressed through Egypt with the overthrow of Hosni Mubarak, engulfed Yemen and sparked protests in Syria. Popular uprisings that dramatically changed the political landscape of the Arab world, with three deeply entrenched regimes being toppled. India, for its part, has stuck to its non-interventionist position. But can it continue to remain insulated from developments in West Asia, home to some 5 million Indian citizens and most of India's energy supplies? We're asking tonight, does India have to be pro-West in order to be proactive in the region? Joining me as always, Shapam Das Gupta and Mani Shankar Iyer. Let me begin with you, Mani. We've seen this very guarded, calibrated response from India even after the Gaddafi killing. Can India do more at this point than just sit back and watch? Or is there a certain sense in saying all the world's problems are not ours?
No, I think we need to understand this in the perspective of the opening lines of Shakespeare's Richard III, where he says, "Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by the son of Bolingbroke." For what I don't see any Arab Spring. I see a winter of discontent, and I see it being changed into a searing summer of extremism. For what have we got in Egypt? It's been the overthrow of a military dictator to bring in a military regime. In Gaddafi, we see the overthrow of an Arab Republican state to bring in extremists, very, very dangerous extremists coming into power over there. In Bahrain, significantly, you didn't mention it, because the West is supporting the monarchy, which is oppressing the street. In Saudi Arabia, if there's discontent, or is there contentment? For if you're saying that Saudi money has been used to keep Saudi people happy, well, Libyan money was used in a huge measure to keep the Libyan people happy. I cannot see the monarchies of the Arab world being any less repressive than were the Republican states. But what I do see as the backdrop to all this is the Shia versus Sunni confrontation, with Iran having become the flag bearer of a kind of Shia nationalism. Now that the Americans rather stupidly intervened in Iraq and rendered it, after the Battle of Qadisiyah in 648, for the first time into the truly Shia country that it is, we have the Shias coming right up to the borders of Wahhabi Islam. And in Lebanon, the rise of the Hezbollah, financed by what you saw by Iran, resulted in an intervention that is ongoing in Syria. So, in fact, there is a journey into chaos. This is the title of a book that Paul Johnson wrote in 1957, when there was the shift from Arab monarchies into Arab republican states. And now we see a change from those Arab republican states into what? Neither you know nor I know, but it does seem to be chaos. So in these circumstances, I think wisdom lies in keeping our powder dry, and certainly not in joining the hypocritical West, which till day before yesterday was praising Gaddafi. The proof of that is you read Tony Blair's autobiography. I refer to pages 599 and 622, where he says, if only Saddam had had the good sense, quote, to do what Gaddafi did, we wouldn't have needed to intervene. But now it turns out, 1 year after the book was published, that whether Gaddafi had good sense or a Gadda's sense, the end result was the same for him. And what the American or the NATO intervention in Libya has taught every single regime in the world which is under threat of external intervention is that if you have the bomb, then like North Korea, you're safe. And if you don't have the bomb, then like Libya, you're in serious danger. So I think what has happened is a load of foolishness. What was right was that the Arab street should have been allowed to determine its own destiny. The intervention of the Americans in Afghanistan, of the Americans in Iraq, and now the Americans in Libya has only spelt disaster, for the Americans have the power to create outcomes, but they do not have the wisdom to sustain outcomes. And therefore, I fear that we are going to be in for a journey into chaos. And in those circumstances, for India to keep to one side, watch what is happening, is the right thing to do. And I'm glad that we are moving towards recognizing the National Transitional Council.
NDTV's cricket app, Android and iPhone. Fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. ndtv.com/apps.